Good morning, fellas, and welcome back to My Prize Garage. My name is Matt, and Family Feud is one of the longest running game shows of all time. So today, let's take a look at the history of the show. The story of Family Feud starts with Mark Goodson, Bill Todman Productions. Goodson was primarily in charge of game shows, and he created tons of popular formats, including The Price is Right, Tattletales, Card Sharks, Password, Double Dare, no not that one, hello Alex Trebek, To Tell the Truth, and Match Game. And that last show is actually where the story starts. Match Game premiered in 1962 on NBC, but it really hit its stride on CBS in 1973. By overhauling the format and writing funnier questions, it became one of the most popular shows on daytime TV. Match Game included an audience match in the bonus round, where a previous studio audience was given a fill-in-the-blank prompt. After getting suggestions from 3 celebrities, the contestant chooses what they think was the most popular response. If their choice is one of the top 3 answers, they win some money, up to $500 for the number 1 answer. Goodson expanded this idea into a full-fledged show, but instead of 2 or 3 word phrases, they asked survey questions, similar to the material on the original Match Game from the 60s. Name the word you think you use most often when you talk. Real or fictional, name a famous George. Name something that would cause a lot of damage if it overflows. Name a way a penny is different from a quarter, that sort of thing. Work on a spin-off began in 1975, and the host ended up being Richard Dawson. At the time, Dawson was one of 3 regular panelists on Match Game, alongside Brett Summers and Charles Nelson Riley, and he was easily the most popular. Contestants usually asked him for help in the audience match, then when it came time to multiply their winnings by 11 in the head-to-head match, Dawson was by far the most frequent choice. His popularity on the show led to him telling Goodson he wanted to host their next game show, and that show ended up being Family Feud. It wasn't always that way, though. Originally, Family Feud was going to be hosted by William Shatner of Star Trek fame. After reading about the Feud pilot being in the works, Dawson and his agent talked to Mark Goodson, since they'd previously agreed that Dawson would get a shot at the next game show. They threatened that Richard would be boring and unfunny on Match Game if he didn't get an audition. So Goodson gave him the audition he wanted, and he did end up being selected as the host. Originally, the show was going to feature 2 contestants answering the survey questions, but there were many more answers on the board compared to Match Game. Many people would come up with 2 or 3 good answers, then start drawing blanks. That's when Goodson realized this was a perfect format to turn into a team game. Dawson's Family Feud premiered on ABC on July 12, 1976. The rules of the show were simple. 2 families of 5 members each go head-to-head answering survey questions. Each answer gets a point value corresponding to however many people said it on the survey. At least 2 people who were surveyed have to say an answer for it to appear on the board. Said board had room for 12 answers, but the most any question had was 10. Each round starts with a face-off, where 1 member from each family races to buzz in to answer the round's question first. Then if the first person doesn't find the most popular answer, their opponent gets a chance to find a better one. Whoever scores higher in the face-off gets to decide whether they want to play, or pass the board to the other family. Once one family is in control, the host goes down the line asking the team for more answers to the same question. If their answer is on the board, they earn points. If not, they get a strike. If they sweep the board and find every answer, the points get added to their total. But if they get 3 strikes before finding the last answer, the other family gets 1 chance. If the one answer they give is on the board, they steal the points. But if they get it wrong too, the points go back to the family that was originally in control. Rinse and repeat till one family has enough points to win. The team captain would always do the first face-off, then they would go down the line after that. Second team member does the second round, third member does the third round, and so on and so on. Later rounds in the game are played for double or triple points. Whichever family has the most points at the end of the game wins, and they go on to the fast money bonus round. At first the goal was 200 points, but after a little while it became 300. In Fast Money, 2 family members play a lightning round. Each person is asked the same 5 survey questions, with the second player off stage so they can't hear the first person's answers. The first player gets 15 seconds to answer the 5 questions, then the second player gets 20. They get a little extra time because they're not allowed to repeat their teammates' answers. If they do, they have to come up with another one. Although, if we're being real, the timer is more of a suggestion than a hard limit. Sometimes the host will slip up while reading the questions, so players often get extra time at the end. If the 2 players get 200 points between them in this round, they win $5,000. If they didn't reach 200, each point they did get was worth $5, 1 for each member of the family. So a losing Fast Money round could still be worth as much as $9.95. In any case, each point earned in the main round is worth $1 as well, regardless of the outcome of Fast Money. The winning family continued to appear as champions till they either lost or exceeded ABC's winnings cap of $25,000. As soon as they won that amount, they would retire undefeated, and 2 new families would be introduced the following day. The pilot taped with Richard Dawson was announced by Johnny Olson, who was well known as the announcer of several other shows, such as The Price is Right and Dawson's other game show of the time, Match Game. When the series proper started, Gene Wood was chosen to be the announcer instead. Wood was known for announcing Well, everything. Seems like he was doing like 6 different shows at any given time. If a Goods and Todman show needed an announcer, Gene was their guy. His other credits include Tattletales, Double Dare, no, still not that one, Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour, Classic Concentration, Child's Play, Body Language, Card Sharks, Match Game 90, Password Plus, and Super Password, among others. He also occasionally filled in on Now You See It, The Price is Right, and Supermarket Sweep. And he appeared on a panelist on shows like Match Game and To Tell the Truth. Family Feud originally aired at 1:30 p.m., but it didn't find a huge audience in that time slot. It was getting beaten by 2 soap operas that aired at the same time, As the World Turns on CBS and Days of Our Lives on NBC. But after a few months, ABC's own soap opera All My Children was expanded from 30 to 60 minutes, kicking Feud out of its time slot. The show moved to 11:30 a.m., where it really hit its stride. Eventually, it became the highest rated show on daytime TV, even surpassing Dawson's other game show, Match Game. One of the most infamous moments in the show's history came in 1977. The York family appeared on 7 episodes, winning 6 of them, so they did quite well for themselves. You're not even allowed to win 6 games anymore. But they're best known for this absolute car crash of a fast money round.
Name an animal with 3 letters in its name.
Frog. Alligator.
A brand of gasoline.
Regular. Ethel.
Something that comes with a summer storm.
Snow.
Despite those absolutely horrendous answers, they managed to muster 83 points. Bob Sr. may have gotten his last answer in after the buzzer, but like, don't worry about it. The man said alligator has 3 letters. They're not winning anyway.
Name an animal with 3 letters in its name. You said alligator. Our survey said D-O-G.
3 of the same letters, you said.
What do you mean you thought it was 3 of the same letter? Alligator doesn't have that either! Dog, cat, cow, pig, fox, yak, that's not a hard question, man. You know, I've always thought you should be able to get 1 point for an answer on Feud. If one person said something on a survey, it should count. But then I realized one possible reason there's a 2-point minimum. Someone might try to pull some funny business on the survey, and give answers that make no sense. If you could get 1 point for an answer, Mr. Alligator might have gotten 1. So only including answers multiple people agreed on would be a mechanism against that. Don't get me wrong though, the York family was pretty good at the game. You don't win 6 games by giving terrible answers nonstop for a week and a half. But it happens, you can be doing well 1 minute and rolling over and dying the next. But they managed to recover and win 3 more games after that mess. In 1977, a nighttime syndicated version of Family Feud premiered, with Viacom Enterprises distributing the show. Richard Dawson was the host of this version as well. At this point, Dawson was hosting 2 versions of Family Feud, and he was still a regular panelist on Match Game, which had daytime and nighttime versions of its own. Between the 4 shows, he was doing 12 game show episodes per week. As you can probably imagine, he began to feel burned out as his workload grew. He felt like it was time to move on from Match Game and focus on Feud, but he was still under contract. Dawson also wasn't getting along with Match Game producers, which didn't help matters. Changes to Match Game's format over the years also made Dawson lose interest in the show. As I mentioned earlier, he was by far the most common choice during the bonus round, and Match Game made multiple efforts to give other stars more chances to play. In 1975, they added a rule stating that if you won multiple games, you couldn't pick the same star for the head-to-head match twice in a row. But after 6 weeks, they got rid of that rule, and people went right back to picking Richard virtually every day. But in 1978, they implemented a rule change that actually stuck. After the audience match portion of the bonus round, the champions spun the Star Wheel to find out who they would play the head-to-head match with. Dawson went on to say he felt like that rule change targeted him specifically, and he was none too pleased with it. Not long after the Star Wheel was added, Dawson showed up to a Match Game taping with sunglasses on. He'd warned them during his previous taping of Family Feud as well, because he was having problems with his eye. But staff from the 2 shows didn't communicate often, so it was seen as an attempt from Dawson to further isolate himself from everybody else. So Match Game's producer Ira Skutch talked to Richard halfway through the taping day, and let him know he was done with the show. After 2 more episodes of the daytime show and 1 more episode of Match Game PM, Dawson was free from his Match Game contract, and he was able to spend more of his energy on Family Feud. The week after his departure, his friend and fellow game show host Bob Barker took over Dawson's seat, and several other male panelists served as semi-regulars for the next 3 years. A permanent replacement for Richard wasn't found until 1981, when McLean Stevenson became a regular. Meanwhile, on Family Feud, the daytime show on ABC was on 5 times a week, and the nighttime syndicated show was originally on once a week. Some of Family Feud's rules had to be modified for syndication. Nowadays, if you watch Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune, or heck, Modern Family Feud, you'll get the same episode as everybody else each day, no matter where in the US you live. But that wasn't always the case. Back when Nighttime Feud first premiered, syndicated shows often engaged in a practice called bicycling. The syndicator would only send out a few tapes of each episode, but not nearly enough for every station in America to get one. Instead, they sent tapes to the biggest markets to air Family Feud episodes first. Once they aired, the station sent those same tapes to the next one on the list, until they eventually reached the smallest markets carrying the show. Bicycling meant the same episodes wouldn't air on the same day everywhere, and there was no guarantee they would air in the right order either. As a result, syndicated Feud didn't have returning champions. Each family had one chance to win, and they'd introduce 2 new families in the next episode. Fast Money on the syndicated version was played for $10,000 though, so despite only getting to appear once, the families that did win got quite a lot of, buck for their bang? On top of daytime and nighttime Feud, yet another version of the show premiered on ABC in 1978, the All-Star Family Feud Special. 17 celebrity episodes aired over the next 6 years on primetime, usually featuring casts from TV shows. 4 teams competed over the course of each hour-long episode. The first 2 teams played to 200 points, then the winners played Fast Money for $5,000. Then the remaining 2 teams did the same, and the winners of each game faced off in a final 1-question showdown. Whoever won that round played Fast Money again, this time for $10,000. And of course, all winnings were donated to charity. Meanwhile, in January 1979, syndicated Feud was expanded from 1 to 2 nights a week. One time that year, the Dawson family, no relation, appeared on the nighttime show, but they wound up getting shut out. The Murray family won the game a gazillion to nothing, and after winning Fast Money, the credits played. Since one of the families shared a name with the host, they had a little fun with it. Almost every last name in the credits had Dawson attached to the end of it. Tag yourself, I'm Kathy Hugart Dawson. This is my new favorite thing. Some more notable episodes from 1979 happened on the daytime show. The feud between the Hatfield and McCoy families is one of the most infamous in US history. Said feud caused the deaths of over a dozen members of those families, starting during the Civil War and continuing through the rest of the 19th century. But they united for a series of special episodes of the Family Feud game show. They played for an entire week across 5 episodes. Whichever family won the most games got a pig, which stayed on stage throughout the week. 10 members of each family took part, with substitutions being allowed after each round. Hello and welcome to Family Feud Basketball! The McCoy family won 3 games to 2, but the Hatfields won more money, racking up $11,272, compared to the McCoys' $84.59. Well, sort of. That's how much they won organically by playing the game. But since the McCoys won the best of 5 series, their winnings were bumped up to $11,273, one-upping the Hatfields total by $1. Oh, they also took home the pig, right. In 1980, Nighttime Family Feud was expanded yet again, now airing Monday through Friday. That marks the first time a US game show aired 5 days a week on network TV and syndication at the same time. Richard Dawson and company were making a whopping 10 episodes per week. Other shows would go on to do that as well, and in fact we'll be talking about one of them a little later. Meanwhile, the daytime show moved to a new time slot yet again. With the cancellation of the $20,000 pyramid, Family Feud moved from 11:30 to noon to take its place. But it maintained its high ratings, and it stayed the most popular daytime game show for quite a long time. Here's another famous funny answer. In 1980, the Trejo family appeared on the ABC show. The first question Dawson asked Kathy in Fast Money was,
during what months of pregnancy does a woman begin to look pregnant?
September.
Something... Oh.
What followed was approximately 7 minutes of Richard Dawson not being able to control his laughter, including when her teammate Cece came out to play.
First question coming up. Oh, God. Oh, here we go, darling. No, this is gotta be serious. September.
And Cece added some more chaos to the mix for good measure.
A noisy bird.
Cuckoo.
Cuckoo. How the hell did you people get on this show? Cuckoo! I hate it. Survey said 0.
After a while, Richard just gave up trying to read the questions within the time limit. The buzzer sounded with 2 questions to go and he just kept going. In 1983, lollipop trees were added to the set. At some point during the game, the 5th player on each team would pick a Tootsie Pop from the tree. If it had a black stem, they earned their family $100, regardless of the outcome of the game. As the 80s continued, Family Feud started seeing stronger competition in the game show space. Wheel of Fortune had been airing on NBC since 1975, but that show got a nighttime syndicated version of its own in 1983. That put a dent in Family Feud's ratings, eventually surpassing Feud as the highest rated syndicated show on TV. And another show would come along the very next year, Alex Trebek's syndicated Jeopardy! Despite a rough first couple months on the air, Jeopardy! Would also end up becoming very successful in its own right, further hurting Feud's ratings. As a response to sinking ratings, the game was extended in 1984. Now instead of 300 points, families needed 400 points to win the game. The problem with this format is that they added a whole nother 100-point round. With so many rounds being played and the show still being half an hour long, Family Feud became a whole lot more rushed. It usually took at least 5 surveys to find a winner, but oftentimes it would take 6, 7, or even 8 questions, so a lot had to be edited out to make a 23-minute episode. Even though the ratings weren't as high as they used to be, Viacom reached out to Richard Dawson to see how interested he was in continuing the show. At this point, he had done over 3,000 episodes of Feud in less than 10 years, and he had been taping 10 episodes a week for several years at that point. It was time for him to take a rest and not grind out so many episodes every year. Initially, Dawson wanted to call it quits right away, but he was reminded how many people he would be putting out of a job. He agreed to finish what was left of his time on ABC, as well as the final 39 weeks of syndication for the 1985-86 season. After not hearing from Viacom for a week, Dawson got a call saying the syndicated show was cancelled anyway. ABC followed suit, and both versions of Feud aired their final episodes in the middle of 1985, with syndicated reruns continuing into 1986. Meanwhile, Wheel and Jeopardy have been on continuously since their respective premieres, but for now, Family Feud was off the air. Richard Dawson was well known for kissing all the women who appeared as contestants on the show, so much so that he became known as the Kissing Bandit. On the final episode on ABC, he explained that he did it to wish them luck and love, the same way his mom did for him. During Dawson's time on the show, he had viewers vote on whether he should continue kissing contestants. Over 200,000 people wrote in, and the majority of them said yes. In total, Family Feud aired 2,311 daytime episodes and 17 primetime specials on ABC, as well as 976 episodes in syndication. The show sent families home with millions upon millions of dollars. The ABC version won a Daytime Emmy Award for Outstanding Game Show in 1977, and was frequently nominated in the following years. Unfortunately for Feud, it usually lost out to shows like Pyramid, Password Plus, and Hollywood Squares. Richard Dawson was also a perennial nominee for Outstanding Game Show Host, but he only won it once in 1978. Other hosts that beat Dawson include Peter Marshall, Bob Barker, Dick Clark, and Betty White. It would be a little while before Family Feud returned, but in 1988, the show was added to CBS's daytime schedule, taking the 10 a.m. time slot and replacing the $25,000 Pyramid. The show premiered on the 4th of July with Ray Combs as the host, and a new syndicated version followed in September. You know, the month where all the women look pregnant. Prior to Family Feud, Combs' job was warming up studio audiences during the taping of sitcoms, most notably The Golden Girls. A show like Golden Girls is half an hour long when it reaches your TV screen, but they can take multiple hours to film, so they would hire warm-up comics like Combs to keep the audience's energy up in between scenes. In fact, Combs was so popular that other shows started changing their schedules, just to get him as a warm-up as well. He also made a few appearances on the shows he warmed up for, including Golden Girls, Amen, and The Facts of Life. By the time Combs' version of Feud premiered, several TV practices were less common. Bicycling didn't happen as often, which meant the syndicated version was able to have returning champions. Meanwhile, winnings caps became less common on network TV with fewer game shows on the air. So instead of a limit to how much cash you can win, the Combs version limited each family to 5 wins. As soon as they won their 5th game in a row, they'd retire undefeated. Less than a month into the show's run, the Danko family became the first 5-game winners. The prize money remained the same though, $5,000 on the daytime show and $10,000 on the syndicated one for winning fast money. Main game points became dollars, and if you lose fast money, bonus round points are worth $5 apiece. Occasionally in Fast Money, the first contestant would score 200 points all by themselves. This was quite possibly Combs' favorite thing in the universe, because whenever that happened, he would get to prank the second player. Since they don't know how their teammate did till the host tells them, Combs would say the first player only got like 12 points, then he would ask them 5 stupid made-up questions. Then he'd turn around and reveal they'd already won. Soloing Fast Money was nothing new though. It had happened a couple times on Dawson's version of the show. But the solo wins during Combs' tenure are much better known, thanks to his pranks. After a while, the producer started playing along as well. In this episode, Helen scored 205 points for the first position, winning Fast Money by herself. By the time her teammate Paul came out, they'd messed with the board so it said 5 points. So at this point in Combs' Feud career, the entire show was in on his jokes. Oh, by the way, one of the nonsense questions was, name a number between 3 and 5, and Paul said 2. Don't worry about that. On one episode in 1990, we actually got a contestant hosting part of one episode. The Castellano family won a couple games on the show, and the crew absolutely loved them, including Combs himself. During the double points round of their second game, Ray handed his card to the captain Phil and had him host.
Phil, why don't you just run the questions down the line for me? We'll take over, let me have a break, and I'll be over here with your family. Start right at, who had it last? Okay, it's her turn. Take it over. Read the question and we gotta move.
And Phil figured, hey, sure, why not? No questions asked, like I just jumped straight into it. Will I do well? Will I embarrass myself? Whatever. Host now, ask questions later.
Tell me something you hated. Hi, darling. Oh, that's the other guy. Tell me something you hated about summer camp.
The mosquitoes.
Mosquitoes. Is it up there? We got a tight game here between the Castellano family and the Lewis family.
Phil, just ask the question.
About summer camp.
Phil, get in the shot, man. Turn around and face this way so they can see you both. I'm hiding the easy. Now say, show me whatever he said. All right. 2 strikes, right. Yeah, all right. You better get it, come on.
Show me the counselor.
All right, here we go, man.
We got Ray Castellano.
Okay, now back over here. Chance to steal. Name something you hated about summer camp, Nicole.
Being away from home.
Away from home. Doesn't know. Gail, away from home. Doesn't know. John. The other kids. Phil?
Being away from home.
Say being away from home?
Being away from home.
Would you pick? Okay, tell me places. I say being away from home.
Being away from home. Is it up there?
I think the best part, though, is the fact that he wasn't even meant to be the team captain at first. Here's a clip of him telling the story on the podcast Tell Us About Yourself.
I was not well versed at playing the game. On the other hand, my other family members, they were. And I came onto that game to be the second person. My brother was supposed to be first. But as it turns out, I got dressed, started getting dressed to go there, and I don't feel, I'm a working class man. I didn't feel comfortable wearing a suit and tie. My brother always likes to wear a suit and tie. And I had a funky little pink tie with some things on it. And then my sister had a red jacket. I said, oh, Pat, let me try that on. So I put on the red jacket. And when we went down to the show itself, they said to us, you're the leader of the family, they told me. I was like, what? I don't know how to do that. He's the guy that knows how to do it. I was pointing at my brother. So no, you're the leader of the family.
A red jacket got him the captain spot on the team by accident. You'll love to see it. Phil Castellano is my new favorite guy. During Combs' time on the show, Family Feud started doing winner-take-all tournaments every few months. These tournaments of champions featured 4 top-winning families returning for a chance at a jackpot. How much money they play for was decided by the fast money rounds at the end of each game. The jackpot would start at a certain amount, then the winners of each game could add to it by winning fast money. On the CBS show, the jackpot started at $25,000, and fast money was worth the normal $5,000. But it would go into the jackpot instead of the contestants' pockets. The syndicated show's jackpot was double that. It started at $50,000 and fast money was worth $10,000. Each round consisted of best 2 out of 3 matches. With 6 semi-final games, the maximum possible jackpot was $55,000 on CBS and $110,000 in syndication. Whichever 2 families won 2 games in the first round move on to the finals, which was also best of 3. The jackpot was set by then, so fast money wasn't played. Instead, the point goal was extended to 400 points. Oh yeah, when Combs Feud premiered, they put the point goal back at 300. That time I didn't come up in my script. I'm great at this. The syndicated version stopped doing tournaments after the 2nd season, but they continued on CBS. Starting in the 3rd season, tournaments took place nearly every month, but each round was best of 1. With fewer games in each tournament, the maximum jackpot was effectively lowered to $35,000. During Ray Combs' run on the show, an infamous Family Feud video game was released in 1990. It came out on the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo Entertainment System, and the SNES version in particular has gained notoriety online. I've already made a video about why, but I'll explain it here as well. Modern Family Feud games have an autocomplete system. Once you have an answer in mind, you can just type in 1 or 2 letters, and the game will suggest impossible answers that start with those letters. That makes the game simpler to play, because you don't have to worry about misspelling anything. But this game didn't have autocomplete, so they had to find another way to make spelling less of an obstacle. What they came up with was an incredibly lenient system for recognizing text. All you have to do is put all the right letters in the right order, and the game will count it as a right answer. If you want to answer mile, the game would accept $1 million question, since M, I, L, and E are in the right order. They ignore the letters in between, as long as they detect an answer that's on the board. They were also even more lenient with vowels, so you could spell peanut without the A. Doubled letters were ignored entirely, so you could spell butter with 1 T. Several tool-assisted playthroughs of the game have made the rounds online, but I'm mostly using my own footage here. You know, not not long after I posted my full video about the game, I got a DM on Discord from my guy GameShowFan2001. He said the system would be a great concept for a game show in its own right. You'd be shown a long phrase, and you have to find a word or shorter phrase hiding inside of it. So I was like, yeah, you're right, that is a good concept for a game show. You know how I know that? It already exists. That's pretty much exactly the premise of camouflage. No, not that one. That's better. So I'm like, hey man, if it's any consolation, now you know your idea does work as a game show format. Meanwhile, on the show proper, TV networks were starting to shift away from game shows. By 1991, the only game shows on network TV were Combs' Family Feud and The Price is Right, both on CBS. Although, classic concentration reruns were still airing on NBC at that point. Gone were the days of NBC airing 5 game shows back-to-back, and the other networks followed suit for the most part. Other shows like Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune did continue, but only in syndication. Meanwhile, Family Feud often got preempted, as some stations decided to air syndicated shows in its time slot. This syndicated feud wasn't faring well either, with many markets putting it in late-night time slots or getting rid of it entirely. In response, both versions of the show were revamped in 1992. The Bullseye Round was added to the CBS and syndicated versions. Instead of main game points being converted to dollars, the Bullseye Round determined how much money each team would play for in fast money. On the syndicated show, now called the New Family Feud, each family started with $5,000 in the bank, the minimum amount they could end up playing for in fast money. Then the two teams took part in a series of 5 face-offs. Combs asked a question, and the contestants raced to buzz in first. Only the top answer counted in this round. Whoever found it added money to their family's bank. The first question was worth $1,000, the second question was worth $2,000, and so on, up to $5,000 for the last one. That means if a family managed to get all 5 questions right, they would play for $20,000 if they won the game. The daytime show, now called Family Feud Challenge, was expanded to an hour long and featured 3 families per episode. Each show started with 2 new families, vying for the right to play against the champions from the previous show. The Bullseye Round was added to this version as well, but the dollar values were halved in the first part of the show. Each family's bank in the first game starts at $2,500, and the questions were worth between $500 and $2,500. The winning family played fast money, for however much was in their bank, up to $10,000. Then they take on the champions in the second half of the show. The Bullseye Round is played again, with the same dollar values as the syndicated version. Then they play another full game, and the winners would play fast money for whatever's in their bank. So if you won both halves of the show, you could win up to $30,000 in a single episode. Of course, that money is split 5 ways, you have to spend money to fly out and get a hotel room, and you still gotta pay taxes, but hey, $74 for an hour's worth of game show ain't bad. Can we not tax game show winnings, please? This is kind of off topic, but I hate that if you win a prize on a game show, you actually have to pay for it. If you win a $20,000 car, you have to pay like $5,000 in taxes to keep it. So a lot of people who win cars on game shows don't actually get them in the end. They have to sell it back and take the cash value instead. At this point, Ray Combs was on TV more often than Richard Dawson was, even when he was effectively doing 4 game shows at the same time. Between the hour-long CBS show and the ongoing syndicated one, 7.5 hours of Family Feud were airing every week. Unfortunately, Family Feud Challenge didn't do as well as they'd hoped, so CBS returned the 10 a.m. hour to affiliates in 1993. The daytime show was effectively cancelled, but the syndicated version managed to last a little longer. The show was renewed for another season in September 1993, but that version was on their last legs as well. Unless it improved significantly, this season would be their last.
The question is, we asked 100 people. We said, name a reason Richard Dawson would return to Feud. What do you think the answer would be?
Because you didn't want to get a real job? Because it's easier than hosting Jeopardy?
Come here, Mike. Well, you know, I'm not allowed to kiss girls because I promised Shannon, but occasionally I can just give a little kiss to a guy.
The moolah, the big dough, for the money. What do you think? Come for the money?
After the CBS series ended, Mark Goodson Productions set out to find a new host to keep the syndicated show going. Mark had passed away due to pancreatic cancer, so it was his son Jonathan's job to find a host for the 1994-95 season. When Family Feud originally came to CBS, Mark wasn't interested in Richard Dawson returning, on account of his bitter relationship with members of the staff, particularly Howard Felsher, the show's producer. Felsher and many others from the original show were still working on the new version, so Goodson ended up selecting Combs to host the revival. Could Dawson host a game show well? Absolutely. Was it the greatest guy to work with? Not so much. But with Feud's ratings declining, Dawson and the staff put their differences aside to focus on one common goal: save the show. So Richard Dawson was back on Feud after nearly a decade, and if we're going by presidential logic, that makes him the first and third host of the show. In fact, that's how Wikipedia counts the hosts. Thanks for ruining counting forever, Grover Cleveland. All this was going on during Ray Combs' final season of the syndicated show. They were gearing up to replace Combs while he was still there. He was allowed to finish the season, then Dawson would take over in September 1994. Combs' final episode ended with probably the worst Fast Money performance of all time. Jim was the second player, and he only managed to answer 2 out of the 5 questions. And on top of that, he didn't score a single point. Some of the questions were real slam dunks too. Name something bricklayers use. There's a really obvious answer here. After that train wreck, Combs immediately left the stage after the show, grabbed his stuff, and didn't say goodbye to anybody on his way out. He wasn't pleased with being replaced with Dawson, to say the least, and I can't blame him, he was a good host. Family Feud returned to syndication the following season, with Dawson at the helm once again. The syndicated show was also expanded to 1 hour, following a similar format to Family Feud Challenge. The Bullseye Round was renamed the Bankroll Game, and it was shortened to 3 questions instead of 5. In the first half of the show, each family started with $2,500 in their bank. The bankroll questions were worth $5,000, $1,500, and $2,500, for a maximum of $7,000 to play for in Fast Money. All those amounts were doubled in the second half, so if a family won both halves of the show, they could potentially earn up to $21,000. Oh yeah, I should probably address the elephant in the room. There are only 4 players on each team instead of 5. This is the only season of the show where that's the case. One of the reasons for that was because in the second half of the show, the champions were often families that appeared on Dawson's original run on Family Feud. Reducing the team size made it easier to find families who were able to play, since some members may have passed away since their original appearance. One notable family to come back was the Trejo family, or the September family if you will. As you can probably imagine, Richard talked about how he lost control of himself during that Fast Money round. Fellow could not stop laughing and he gave up on the timer entirely. There were a couple other notable changes. The board became entirely digital, and there was room for up to 8 answers, which is still true today. The Fast Money round was also made easier. Now the first player got 20 seconds instead of 15, and the second player got 25 seconds instead of 20, and those time limits are still in place to this day. Unlike his original tenure as host, Dawson didn't kiss the female contestants on the revival. In between stints as the host, Dawson married Gretchen Johnson, whom he met as a contestant on the original show. They had a daughter named Shannon, and Richard promised her that the only woman he'd kiss would be her mom. Actually, can we talk about how weird this whole thing is? It threw me off when I learned that Dawson married a former contestant. Like, if I were a game show host, that's something I don't think I'd ever consider doing. And Gretchen was 23 years younger than Richard, which is also kinda, And the fact that he kissed the women on the show during his original run, that's weirded me out as well. But in a lot of ways, what Dawson said on the original show went, so he kept kissing contestants, even though so much of the staff wanted him to stop. And when I say what he said went, that includes a hint of nepotism. Earlier on, I made a joke about the name Kathy Hugart Dawson in the credits. Unlike the Dawson family who played on the show, Kathy was related to Richard. She was his daughter-in-law. She'd married his son, Mark Dawson. She was promoted to producer to replace Howard Felsher, who in turn became the executive producer, to keep him off the set and away from Richard. When Richard did his final episode in 1985, he apologized on air to anybody he butted heads with on the show, Felsher in particular. But Felsher said that Dawson regretted apologizing the very next day. Dawson was a good host, but he was an absolute nightmare to work with. He let his ego get the best of him, and he got away with a lot of things other hosts wouldn't. When a game show has been around as long as Family Feud, there's gonna be quite a few absolutely rotten answers. Here's one of my favorites from Richard Dawson, Too Rich to Dawson.
What would be the ideal everyday temperature?
98.6.
Better hold the clock just a second. Please, everybody, disrobe. 98.6. Survey said, Dale.
I mean, Lee isn't necessarily wrong, but I don't think anybody else in the universe would have interpreted that question that way. I wouldn't complain about never having a fever again, but unfortunately that's not what the question was asking. Bringing back Richard Dawson and former contestants initially caused the show's ratings to jump. Unfortunately, those higher ratings didn't end up being sustainable, despite their best efforts. Plus, many stations that carried Family Feud didn't even air the whole thing. They would just take the second half of each episode and air it on its own, discarding the first half entirely. Dawson's return to Family Feud only lasted 1 season, and the final episode aired on May 26, 1995. Reruns continued throughout the summer, but Family Feud was dead, at least for the time being. Due to Mark Goodson's death in 1992, his family sold the rights to most of his shows to All American Television, so they could pay off an inheritance tax. To cut a long story short, this eventually led to the creation of Fremantle, the production company in charge of Feud to this day. But it would be a while till the show came back. In 1999, Family Feud finally returned, but this time only in syndication. This version of the show has managed to stand the test of time, and it's still on the air today. But modern Family Feud has had several hosts. First up was Louie Anderson. He was a stand-up comedian who was originally cast as Lou Appleton on the pilot for the sitcom Perfect Strangers. He was eventually replaced with Mark Lynn Baker, and the character's name was changed to Larry. As his comedy career continued, Anderson went on to appear as a celebrity on a few episodes of Hollywood Squares, and he created a couple of TV shows of his own. First was a Saturday morning cartoon called Life with Louie in 1995, based on his own childhood. It lasted 3 seasons on Fox, and he won 2 Emmys for his performance on the show. Meanwhile, he also created and played the main character on The Louie Show, where he played a psychotherapist named Dr. Louie Lundgren. That show only lasted 6 episodes on CBS. Anderson was given the Feud hosting job, and his first season premiered on September 20th, 1999. This show also got a new announcer, Burton Richardson. He also announced just about every show in existence. The Arsenio Hall Show, Russian Roulette, Win Tuition, Price is Right, Family Game Night, the list goes on. When Gene Wood was the announcer, he would simply say the names of the families and contestants. But Richardson took a different approach. In his first season, he came up with a rhyme for each family's last name, which could be a tall order. Like, what are you gonna rhyme with Kasperzak?
From Anaheim Hills, California, they leave their opponents madder than heck. It's the Kasperzak family!
Well done. After a while, though, Richardson started to keep it simple. Here's where they're from, this is their name. Done. Meanwhile, the show underwent some rule changes for the revival. The main game always had 4 main rounds, but the double points rounds were eliminated. Instead, they played the first 3 normally, then the 4th round would be triple points. There was also no point goal. Whoever had the most points after 4 rounds won the game, no bells or whistles attached. In Fast Money, the syndicated revival kept the time limits the same. 20 seconds for player 1, 25 seconds for player 2. At first, the prize money was $10,000 if you win, and $5 per point if you lose. Another change that stuck around from the early 90s was that main game points still weren't turned into dollars at the end. But at Louie's request, the prize money was doubled to $20,000 in 2001. Cause I mean, let's say a family wins 1 game, and they get $10,000 in Fast Money. Divide that by 5 family members, and that's $2,000 per person. That's gonna get taxed, and by the time the IRS is done with you, what the heck are you gonna do with what's left? Buy 2 notepads and a hamburger? So from this point on, most versions of Family Feud had a maximum prize of $20,000 per game. That was especially nice because Louie's version of the show had no returning champions. 2 new families were introduced in each episode. Another notable rule change was in the triple points round. Every round of the show up to this point had a 3-strike limit before you lost control of the board. But while Louie was the host, you only got 1 strike, making the decision to pass or play all the more important. Wait, actually, can we talk about this for a second? Well, yeah, we can. This is my video. We talk about what I decide. Pretty much nobody decides to pass on the show these days, especially now that the triple points round is back to 3 strikes. It's become such a foregone conclusion, the host sometimes has to remind the player who won the face-off that they have to make a decision. If you got rid of the pass or play mechanic, I don't think many people would notice. Almost nobody wants to pass. In 2002, the first tournament on Modern Family Feud took place. Louie Anderson hosted the Family Circle Tournament of Champions, where 8 former champions returned for another shot at some cash. The jackpot started at $50,000 money, and each Fast Money win before the finals added another $20,000, with $5 per point going into the pot after each loss. In total, the Klein and Reno families ended up playing for $112,230. The final game included a double points round for the first time on Modern Syndicated Feud, and once again there was no Fast Money in the finals. Instead, they added extra main rounds and played to 500 points. The Klein family came out on top, winning the entire jackpot. In fact, they shut out the Reno family and scored a record 701 points. That's not even mathematically possible on most episodes. But after 3 seasons, Louie Anderson's run as the host of Family Feud came to an end, and the search for a new host began. The job ended up going to Richard Karn. After earning his drama degree in the late 70s, he got a traffic citation for rolling through a stop sign soon after moving to Los Angeles. He went to a traffic school, where he sat next to an agent who told him about casting for the upcoming sitcom Home Improvement. Originally, the role of Al Borland belonged to Stephen Tobolowsky, but he had to be recast because of a movie he was busy working on around the same time. Karn ended up getting the role, and Al eventually became a main character on the show. So that's what Karn was best known for when he got the Family Feud job. This wasn't his first foray into game shows, though. In 2000, Karn was a panelist on the pilot for a revival of To Tell the Truth. When that show got picked up for syndication, Karn was asked to come back as a regular panelist. He declined because he wasn't ready to fully jump headfirst into game shows at the time. Later on, he got a call from the same producers, asking if he wanted to host a game show, because they were replacing Louis on Family Feud, and after a while he decided he was all in. One other potential host they were considering to replace Louis was Ryan Seacrest. Fremantle called him on a Friday, saying he could either host Family Feud, or he could wait and host another show they thought he'd be better on. After thinking about it over the weekend, he told Fremantle on Monday that he'd take the risk and wait for the other show. That show turned out to be American Idol, which Seacrest is still doing to this day, so Karn wound up getting the job instead. There were a few notable rule changes from the Anderson version. The 4th round, still worth triple points, was back to 3 strikes, but they came up with another way to make it harder. Karn would only read the question once, so you'd better be paying attention. And finally, returning champions were back. Families could play a maximum of 5 games before leaving undefeated. Oh, here's one other thing I learned during my research. Karn is actually Richard's middle name. His full name is Richard Karn Wilson, but he dropped his last name, and you know what? I can't blame him. Richard Wilson would be one of the most generic names in the world. That's like an accountant name or something. Ugh. Richard Karn, now that's a handsome and cool name. Messing around aside, he switched up his name to not be confused with another Richard Wilson, who was already part of the Screen Actors Guild. Karn brought different vibes to Family Feud, and I quite like said vibes. He would often say stuff like, "It's a close game, so I'm doubling the points," as if that's his call and not just, you know, the rules of the show. As if he could just leave the points as is or quadruple them at will. You know what? They should have given Richard a god button, and just let him change the rules whenever he felt like. Calvin Ball Family Feud sounds like a fabulous time. In Karn's second season hosting the show, the 300-point goal was reinstated, but the game stayed at a flat 4 rounds. Sometimes neither family reaches the goal by the end of round 4, in which case a new sudden death round would be played, which is still in place to this day. The last player from each family goes up for one final face-off. The host reads a new question, which is also worth triple points. Like the bullseye round, only the number 1 answer was accepted. Whoever found the top answer moved on to fast money. Towards the end of Richard Karn's run, he was still only reading the triple points round question once. To make it easier to play along at home, the question started being displayed at the bottom of the show, which I think is a good move. I'm not on the show, so I might zone out, or I might be in a different room when they come back from the commercial and I might miss the question. Which isn't a big deal, because that's not going to cost me any money, but I'll be completely lost for the rest of the round unless I rewind. But while Karn was wrapping up, Family Feud was about to make its return to CBS. Sort of. In 2006, Ricky Lake hosted a special series called Game Show Marathon, which featured 6 celebrities competing in a variety of game shows, for a chance at winning $100,000 for charity. Each episode they played a different game, and Family Feud was the 7th and final episode of the tournament. The first finalist was Brandy Roderick. She won the very first episode, The Price is Right. Then she beat Paige Davis at Card Sharks a few weeks later. Meanwhile, Kathy and Jimmy qualified by winning Press Your Luck, then beating Lance Bass one-on-one in Match Game. Roderick and Jimmy returned the next week for the Family Feud finale. Both of them had been on the show before. The Jimmy family played with Richard Dawson in 1981, and Roderick took part in a series of Battle of the Beach specials, back in 2000 when Louie Anderson hosted the show. She played as part of the Baywatch Hawaii cast, and they played against real-life lifeguards from Los Angeles. One other thing I found in my research, Kathy Najimy was also on the $25,000 pyramid as a regular contestant back in 1985. Not this episode, I couldn't find her episode. Anyway, Najimy's family won Family Feud, making her the champion of the whole tournament. That won her $100,000 for her charity. Kathy and her husband Dan went on to play Fast Money, where they won another $50,000 for a random viewer at home. Between this episode and her Match Game and Press Your Luck wins, Kathy Najimy won nearly $250,000 for charity and viewers. You know, it's just now occurring to me that I've done 3 game show history videos, and all of them have been about games Kathy and Jimmy won on Game Show Marathon. Go figure.
We'll see you next time on Game Show Marathon. Good night.
Well, so much for next time. This show didn't get a second season or anything. Meanwhile, on the syndicated show, Richard Karn was wrapping up his final season. He ended up hosting Feud from 2002 to 2006. The Karn version of Family Feud was the one that was on when I was growing up. Well, sort of. By the time I watched it for the first time, the next host John O'Hurley had taken over, but the Karn version was still on GSN on weekdays. I mostly watched GSN after school at the time, so I didn't bother to change to Channel 9 to watch the newer episodes. Sometimes I flip over and watch O'Hurley Feud, but not often. John O'Hurley was best known for his recurring role on Seinfeld, as Elaine's boss, Jay Peterman. He also voiced King Neptune on SpongeBob SquarePants, appeared on various soap operas, and he would go on to play Mayor Roger Doofenshmirtz on Phineas and Ferb. O'Hurley was no stranger to game shows either. He hosted To Tell the Truth for 2 seasons in syndication, starting in 2000. In fact, his version of Family Feud was taped on the same stage where To Tell the Truth was a few years earlier. And guess what, fellas? To Tell the Truth is yet another show announced by Burton Richardson. That means that Family Feud was the second game show Richardson and O'Hurley worked together on. This is also the version where Richard Karn was a panelist on the pilot. So Karn just so happened to be working with his eventual successor on an entirely different game show. Small world. Let's make it even smaller. Louis Anderson was also on the show a couple times. So half of Family Feud's hosts and one of their announcers also worked on this show. Quite a few celebrities who give game shows a whirl go all in, so they appear on multiple shows together. O'Hurley also hosted a handful of unsold game show pilots, including the Scrabble Challenge for Game Show Network. And fellas, this show is just about as close to two people playing Scrabble straight up as you can get, at least if you're trying to make a competent, watchable game show as well. The main twist is you earn tiles and control of the board by answering trivia questions, instead of simply alternating turns, and the value of each point goes up as the game goes on. That show didn't get picked up though. But way back in 1985, O'Hurley took part in Guys and Dolls Week on Richard Dawson's Family Feud, the last celebrity specials Dawson hosted in fact. It pitted men and women from soap operas against each other, and O'Hurley took part since he played two characters on Loving. That means John O'Hurley is one of only a few people to be a contestant and a host on the same game show. The set was completely overhauled for O'Hurley's run. Now the stage was completely surrounded by the audience, including people sitting behind the game board. Those seats seem kinda rotten, but hey. There were also some callbacks to the original version of the show. When the Dawson version first premiered, the families would start the game in this living room sort of thing and then make their way to the podium. And they brought that back for the O'Hurley version. Burton Richardson also started taking cues from Gene Wood's announcing work. After introducing the first family, he'd say ready for action, and then on your marks after introducing the second one, the same way Wood did on the Dawson and Combs versions.
Introducing the Sparrow family, ready for action. Playing against the Wynn family, on your marks.
Let's meet the Brown family. Quentin, Gerald, General, Teresa, and Kendall, ready for action. Playing against the Bice family. Laura, Cheryl, Steve, Nancy, and Joyce, on your marks.
So the show was kind of being brought back to its roots in some ways this season. The format of the show was pretty similar to the Karn version, at least to start out. 4 rounds, double points in round 3, triple points in round 4, first to 300 wins, and fast money was worth $20,000. One notable change was that O'Hurley read the triple points question to each contestant in line, instead of just once at the start of the round like Karn did. O'Hurley was overall a solid host, but the ratings still weren't quite where the show wanted them to be. While John O'Hurley's feud was limping along in syndication, Celebrity Family Feud premiered on NBC, hosted by Al Roker. With regular Feud having aired on CBS and ABC previously, Family Feud became one of only a handful of game shows to air on all 3 major broadcast TV networks. The Celebrity Show premiered in the summer of 2008. It featured 4 teams competing in a tournament format, similar to the All-Star Family Feud specials. Like the older Celebrity shows, 3 games were played per episode, but each one only had 3 rounds to fit a 60-minute time slot. 2 regular rounds, then straight to triple points, then sudden death if necessary. First to 300 wins. Fast money was only played once at the very end, by whichever team won the whole show. They played for $50,000 for a charity of their choice. 24 celebrity teams appeared over the course of the 6-episode run. Meanwhile, back on the syndicated show, they made some changes for the 2009-2010 season. First off, the Bullseye Round was back. Each family started with $15,000 in their bank, which was the absolute minimum they could play for in fast money. The round was back to 5 questions, and they were worth increasing increments of $1,000 up to $5,000. If one family got them all, they could play for $30,000 in fast money. Yeah, the Bullseye Round didn't last past this season. Can't wait for it to pop up again in 2028 for like a week for no reason. O'Hurley wasn't a huge fan of Bullseye being added back to the game, because he felt the format was fine when they kept it simple. The whole extra game before the game felt unnecessary to him, and thanks to the Bullseye Round being reintroduced, only 3 main rounds were played instead of 4. Round 2 was played for double points, and round 3 was triple points. Then of course if they needed it, they'd play sudden death. For this season, O'Hurley didn't spend nearly as much time introducing the contestants and getting to know them. Instead, they played a pre-recorded video of the contestants introducing themselves outside the studio, which I think is a little lame honestly, but oh well. This was also the first season where families had a chance to win a car. If they managed to win 5 games and retire undefeated, they'd win the car. Not gonna lie, this is a pretty weird prize for a team game show. You gotta wonder how many families won the car without discussing who would actually get to keep it. In any case, that change did end up sticking around, and cars have been given out to every 5-day champion since then. But those changes didn't do much to get eyeballs on the show. And things went from bad to worse, because John O'Hurley had decided to leave Family Feud. In a 2017 interview, he said, "I got tired of people writing to me saying, I can't can't watch your show. It's a misnomer calling it that because it's not family. It feels like everything became a penis joke, and I got a little tired of that. I just felt that there are other ways to be more interesting on television, and always trying to push that style of family entertainment. I had a great time doing it, but it was time to move on. A lot of the time when people don't like something about a game show, they'll blame the host, which isn't entirely fair if you ask me, because they typically don't have much of a say in the actual content of the game, and that's pretty much what was happening here. John didn't deserve a lot of the flack he got, but there's only so much you can do about that. O'Hurley did have a decent amount of control over the questions they asked, but there was always pushback when he objected. Oh, it's not that bad, it'll be fine, so he'd often relent and end up presenting questions he wasn't crazy about. Family Feud's ratings had been pretty low for a while, and they'd gone through 3 hosts in just 11 years. Feud just kind of existed for the previous decade, and it looked like it might be in danger of cancellation yet again. But the next host would turn things around in a big way. Steve Harvey had worked a variety of jobs before being chosen to host Family Feud. He was an insurance salesman, a carpet cleaner, a letter carrier, and a stand-up comedian, before finding success doing TV, radio, and movies. He starred on his own sitcom, The Steve Harvey Show from 1996 to 2002, and he's hosted The Steve Harvey Morning Show on the radio since 2000. Since getting the Family Feud job, he's gone on to do... God, just about every other TV show in existence, it feels like. The show also got a new announcer, Joey Fatone. He was best known as the baritone of the boy band NSYNC. He didn't do a whole lot of announcing, though. He just recorded a couple sentences in 2010, and they rolled with those recordings for 5 years. Who are the families in each episode? Not Joey's problem. That was Steve Harvey's question to answer now. Fatone did eventually return to the game show space, though, hosting Common Knowledge for Game Show Network. Family Feud's production had taken place in Los Angeles up to this point, but in 2010, the show moved to Universal Orlando in Florida. That's another reason O'Hurley left, because that would mean more traveling for him, and he wanted more time to spend with his family. The bullseye round was booted back to the Shadow Realm, and the prize for winning fast money went back to a flat $20,000. John O'Hurley wasn't a big fan of the types of survey questions they asked, but Steve Harvey leaned into it, and that was part of the reason for Family Feud's newfound success. His exaggerated reaction to stupid and sexual answers made moments from his show more memorable.
Name a part of your body that's bigger than it was when you were 16.
Your penis.
That way on stage keeps people talking about the show. Actually, you know what? Let's take a look at Steve Harvey's reaction to having a Harvey family on the show.
We're here. 13 years, 200 shows. I've never met a Harvey family.
Well, we got my beautiful wife, Haley. We have the legend himself, my brother-in-law, Grant. We have my wonderful mother, Susan. And we got my stylish stepdad, Steve.
Oh, this a punch. This a punishment now. Steve Harvey. Y'all, people from up the street at the church, y'all had to pray for me.
That was from this year, by the way. He's done way more than 200 shows by now, but that's besides the point. And let's see Richard Dawson's reaction back when they had a Dawson family on.
We are nothing if we're not blatant. I've got my mom on. Why not? A couple of dollars here? Yeah. We're gonna have a nice time. 2 nice families gonna fight it out for the right of going for over $10,000. My namesake, the Dawson family.
Steve Harvey has set the record for longest tenured Family Feud host. The 2023-24 season will be his 14th year, ahead of Richard Dawson's 10. In that time, the show was taped in Atlanta and Los Angeles at various times. After a season in Orlando, they moved to Atlanta, where Steve Harvey lived and also did his radio show. In 2017, Harvey started hosting a new talk show called, well, Steve. So the show moved to LA to accommodate. But after taking some time off due to COVID-19, Family Feud returned to Georgia in 2020, and now episodes are taped in Fayetteville. In the past decade and a half, social media has become a huge aspect of many people's lives, mine included. I've been sitting here for God knows how long talking into a $50 microphone about Family Feud, as if anybody's listening. Anyway, Feud benefits from social media more than its competitors do. It's a format where you can expect some stupid or outrageous answers pretty often, because it's easy to draw a blank and just blurt something out. Those moments can go viral, and they get more and more people talking about the show. Let's do a little comparison, shall we? The most viewed video on Jeopardy's YouTube channel is Alex Trebek telling the world about his cancer diagnosis. I'm sure I'm not alone when I say Jeopardy was what got me into game shows. It's a great show and Alex was a great host. Obviously, many people are going to be concerned about the host's health, so that video has about 5.5 million views, as of writing the script. That's more than double any other video on Jeopardy's channel. The most popular video of actual gameplay is this one, a video game category where the contestants only got 1 clue right. I only got 3 of them, and I call myself a gamer. Wheel of Fortune's most popular video is Emil's bonus round solve, where he got new baby buggy with just 2 letters on the board. I remember watching that episode and thinking it was an incredible solve, and the internet agrees. That video is sitting on 14 million views. Family Feud has a whopping 15 million videos. No, that's wrong. Family Feud has a whopping 15 videos with more views than that. The top video on their YouTube channel is, yup, you guessed it, a compilation of dumb answers. This video has nearly 70 million views, so it's clear that Feud benefits the most from posting content on the internet. Many of the most iconic game show moments for the last decade and change have been from Family Feud. One time, the question was, name another word for mother. Sheila spent approximately 8 minutes repeating answers that are already on the board, and halfway through she started repeating her own answers.
Mommy.
Mommy.
How about Nana?
What about Steve? Nana? Nana? What about Mommy?
Y'all crazy.
What about Mommy?
Mommy.
Okay, Steve. Nana. Well, Steve, I would say Mom, but the answer Mom is already up there.
Right, well, let's just flip that over. There's 2 answers on the board, I think. If you say Nana, if you take N-A, and you try to pronounce it any kind of way, I'm gonna take them one of them beveled balls of yours, and I'm gonna tear mine off and let you do mine personally.
Newsflash, if Mommy is on the board, you can't say Mommy. And when Steve asks for another answer, you can't just say Mommy again. I edited most of that out because, you know what? I think Steve said it best.
We ain't gonna add this like this, cause you'll never be able to survive this up at the school.
If I make this video any longer, we are all going to pass away. This is already at least an hour. Here's one where a contestant buzzed in too fast.
Name something a woman does for her baby that she... Yes.
Changes his diaper.
Changes his diaper. Name something a woman does for her baby that she also does for her hubby. So your big nasty man just laying his little nasty self up there, just boo-booing on his big old funky tail, huh?
Let's do a couple more.
Name something that follows the word pork.
You pine. Huh?
I mean, it's not technically wrong. My guy was thinking outside the box, but there's no chance it's gonna be on the board. In a similar vein, how about a word or phrase that starts with pot?
Potato.
Potato.
Good answer. Good answer.
Again, not wrong, but not right, you know?
Why y'all clapping?
Steve knows the answer to that question full well. Before they go on the show, families are told to support each other, no matter how stupid their answers are. But as you can probably imagine, they might give each other a hard time during the breaks, which is something Louis Anderson has talked about in interviews. Name the word you think you use most often when you talk.
Anti-testamentarianism.
The Johnson family's got 255. The Smith family's got 82. We'll be right back after the break. I just want the world to know that while we were making this skit, I asked my brother to say the word quadrilateral. He decided that was too hard. Then he busted out an even longer word. All sorts of other compilations pop up on Family Feud's YouTube channel as well. Answers that will get you fired, big fast money comebacks, unexpected answers from pastors. Yeah, they have a lot of pastors on this show. How to start drama with your in-laws. But here's my personal favorite. Every once in a while, a contestant will give an answer that's already on the board. Steve could just tell them, yeah, we need another answer, or maybe they could just give them a strike, but that's no fun. Steve would go on and on and on talking about how well they're doing. That's a good answer. That's a really good answer, in fact. You think it's up there, audience? You think it's up there? I can guarantee you that it's up there. You know why? Look up. In one of the compilations of these answers, they edited in a timer to show how long Steve led the contestants on before they realized their mistake. His record is apparently 2 minutes 14. Whoever's editing these compilations is doing a really good job, by the way. There's one video with all the times teams scored exactly 200 points in fast money, and I love how they lined up each clip so the music flows seamlessly. That's a nice touch, well done. With Steve Harvey doing wonders for the show's ratings, the question writers took notice. They started asking more and more questions about Steve himself. Name something you have more of than Steve Harvey. Name something Steve Harvey counts to fall asleep. If they replace the Statue of Liberty with the statue of Steve Harvey, they won't. What would he be holding in his hand? If Steve Harvey offered you a ride, what kind of car would he pick you up in? That one just boils down to name an expensive car, but hey. Oh, actually, while we're on the topic, want to see the worst Family Feud board of all time? Behold! I don't think it even matters what the question is here, fellas. Half these answers make me want to throw my TV in the river. Alright, fine, I'll tell you. Name something of Steve Harvey's that's as soft as a baby's behind.
That mustache.
I'm gonna tell you right now, if your baby behind feel like this mustache, you need to take your baby to the hospital. I know it's one of y'all up top in charge that flips the board over. You're gonna pay for the little milk dud comment, partner. Oh, it ain't over, homie, okay? Just know that. Lips. Our little board operator, you just having a field day. Bee-stung lips. I know they big, you ain't gotta say that.
Thanks, I hate it. In 2015, Ruben Irvin replaced Joey Fatone as the announcer for Family Feud. On top of that, he also serves as their audience warm-up. He's also done the same for The Kelly Clarkson Show, Keke Palmer's Password, Anthony Anderson's To Tell the Truth, and Steve Harvey's 2012 talk show. That one's called The Steve Harvey Show, not to be confused with The Steve Harvey Morning Show, also not to be confused with Steve. Actually, for that matter, not to be confused with the sitcom that's also called The Steve Harvey Show. Did you fellas know the show doesn't have an age requirement? Back in the day you had to be at least 16 years old, but there's no hard limit on the Harvey version. They say you should be at least 15 because of the types of questions they ask, but contestants who are younger than that have been on the show. The only requirement is the person filling out the application has to be at least 18. Catch me auditioning with my baby quadruplet brothers that I'd totally definitely have. Hey, you know how I said earlier the potato wasn't right, but it also wasn't wrong? Yeah, forget the part about it not being right, it was actually on the board. Steve Harvey's success as Family Feud's host led to several other versions of the show. First up, a revival of Celebrity Family Feud, which premiered on ABC in 2015. Unlike the NBC version, the gameplay was virtually identical to the syndicated show, with one major exception. Winning fast money earned the winning team $25,000 for charity instead of $20. To fill a 1-hour time slot, they typically play 2 full games, each with a different pair of teams. Burton Richardson returned as the announcer for this show as well, adding yet another show to his endless resume. Apparently that word is meant to be spelled with accents on both E's, by the way, but I'm not gonna bother. I'm writing the script on a PC, so if you're watching with closed captions, I'm not sorry. Celebrity Feud was the first of many game show revivals ABC has created in recent years. This show paved the way for updated versions of To Tell the Truth, Pyramid, Match Game, Press Your Luck, Card Sharks, and Supermarket Sweep. ABC has since gained a stranglehold on celebrity game show specials as well. Since the premiere of Celebrity Family Feud, ABC has also brought us celebrity editions of Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy! To keep the syndicated show's ratings up, there's a strict limit on how many episodes of Celebrity Feud can be produced each year. In 8 completed seasons so far with Steve Harvey, there have been 81 celebrity specials. But since most episodes are made up of 2 self-contained games, there's effectively well over 100 episodes for syndication. Each game has alternative intros and outros taped, which allows them to air as standalone half-hour episodes. Currently, BET airs Celebrity Feud reruns, but they air the full 1-hour version of each episode. They tend to bend the rules a little bit on this show. On syndicated Feud, each team has 5 players, but sometimes on Celebrity Feud, they'll have teams with 6 players. One time, Kim Kardashian and Kanye West played Fast Money, despite losing to the rest of the Kardashian family. Since both teams were playing for the same charity, the other Kardashians decided to let Kim and Kanye play, because
Kim and Kanye were dying to do this, and they really thought they were going to win. They didn't, but
I just voluntarily talked about the Kardashians in a YouTube video. What does my life come to? Another notable episode of this show featured Steve Harvey's own family. The women in his family took on his wife Marjorie and the Harvey guys. The men ended up winning, and Marjorie and their son Broderick Jr. took on Fast Money. Oh yeah, Steve Harvey's full name is flippin' Broderick Stephen Harvey. Pretty sure that's Stephen with a V. Hold on. I think my script is wrong. No, my script is right, it's Stephen with a PH. Can't say I blame him for going by his middle name. Anyway, Marjorie scored 163 points by herself, but Broderick couldn't bring it home. One question from that round was, what percentage of the work does the husband do in the delivery room? Well, both of my parents agreed on this one, they both said 0%, which was the #1 answer. And I mean, yeah, the guy's not the one pushing out the baby, but I digress. And while we're talking about Celebrity Feud, please enjoy the sight of Steve Harvey standing next to Shaquille O'Neal.
Normally, I put my arm around the person, but this ain't gonna look good.
Nice, moving on. In 2016, Steve Harvey celebrated his 1,000th episode hosting Family Feud. As part of that celebration, the Fast Money prize was bumped up to $50,000. The Blackshear family won the game, and they managed to score 200 points, taking home the biggest single-day prize on Family Feud, outside of tournaments. The biggest prize overall was $160,000, which the Hutchinson family won in 2013's Big Money tournament. In 2019, Harvey also began working on an African version of Family Feud. They made shows for South Africa and Ghana, with Harvey hosting them both. Fremantle sent some of the American show staff to Africa for these shows as well. And they're an experience, man. You won't usually find product placement on US game shows, outside of the prizes you can win, of course. But here's Steve Harvey standing behind a KFC podium on the South African version. All the contestants have KFC water bottles in front of them too. There are a lot of moments on the show where Steve has to ask for clarification, whether it be an element of African culture he's not familiar with, or not being able to understand their accents. But that kind of thing tends to do well on TV. Bring somebody on who has no idea what your culture is like and teach them about it. Heck, he was even learning stuff when the question was, name something Steve Harvey loves about South Africa. There was stuff he didn't recognize on the board.
That's a very nice food.
Yes!
7 colors.
What are you talking about, 7 colors?
7 colors is a Sunday lunch with rice, beetroot, a chakalaka, coleslaw, all 7 colors.
And meat.
7 colors is a meal.
Yes.
A certain meal.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about red, blue, yellow, green. I was going, what the hell?
Each episode of Family Feud South Africa is an hour long, and they play 5 rounds instead of 4. 2 regular rounds, 2 double points rounds, and 1 for triple points at the end. There's no point goal, so whoever has the most points at the end moves on to Fast Money. No sudden death required. Reaching 200 points wins them 75,000 Rand, roughly $4,000 US. In Ghana, each team only has 4 players, and the top prize is $5,000. Meanwhile, back in the States, Family Feud won its first Emmy in over 40 years. It beat out Jeopardy, Let's Make a Deal, The Price is Right, and the final season of Syndicated Millionaire in 2019. Harvey won the Outstanding Game Show Host Award 3 times, including the final award in the category ever in 2022. Not only did Steve bring the syndicated show back from the brink of cancellation, but this version of the show is also doing wonders on Game Show Network. I mean, it must be, because that's a huge portion of what they air. At one point, they aired 36 hours of Family Feud every single week. Family Feud has been a part of GSN's schedule since the very beginning, and they've aired episodes from every host at one point or another. But they weren't airing 4-hour marathons of Richard Karn every single night, I can tell you that much. Watching Steve Harvey has made me realize, wow, Modern Feud is not for me. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of the hosts. I also don't like how sexual a lot of the questions are. Family Feud has never been the most family-friendly game show in the universe, but that's especially true nowadays. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't get a kick out of all the dumb answers that come out of the show.
Name some personal information you'd be surprised to see on someone's tombstone. Natasha.
Birth date.
The birth date.
Sorry.
The birth date. Hey, Natasha. Oh, some personal information you'd be surprised to see on somebody's tombstone. Or the birthday, is one of the key pieces of information that's on there. They go one step further. They give you the birthday and the day your ass checked out of here. Yeah, but put a date on there. Just thought I'd throw that out there. That ain't too personal, you know.
Steve Harvey's Feud isn't everybody's cup of tea, but it's pretty obvious he was the right choice to host it, at least from a ratings perspective. Ultimately, the goal of TV is to get people to watch your show over everyone else's, and Steve knew how to make that happen. I'm honestly having a great time making this video. Family Feud isn't my favorite show in the universe nowadays, but it's fun doing deep dives into shows with this much history. And I'm also having a great time rewatching some of the hosts that I did like. The rise of Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune was a big reason for Family Feud coming to an end in the 80s. But now with Steve Harvey hosting, Feud is right back up there with those very same shows, getting just about as many viewers as Wheel and Jeopardy. Of course, this video is primarily about Family Feud in the United States, but I just wanted to take a second to talk about the current Canadian version as well. An English version of Family Feud premiered in Canada for the first time in 2019, with Jerry D as the host. The rules are similar to the US show, but the win limit is 3 instead of 5, and fast money is worth $10,000 instead of 20. But when they say $10,000, they mean it. That money doesn't get taxed. I'd love some tax-free game show money right about now. This version has had its fair share of viral moments as well. During one sudden death round, even Logan were asked to name Popeye's favorite food. This question has an objectively right answer, spinach, but they were kind of, running out of questions. The contestants failed to answer 3 questions in a row, so this was the 4th one. The dud questions were edited out. And what does Eve have to say?
Name Popeye's favorite food.
Chicken!
Show me chicken!
Spinach, Jerry.
Show me spinach! Show me
Logan is a little bit too polite for his own good. If I were on the show, I would have said spinach! Just to really rub it in. That's not nice, I'll acknowledge that. After Eve's answer made the rounds on the internet, Popeyes reached out to her, offering her $10,000 in free food. Alright, back to Steve Harvey. You know, not long ago, they asked the animal 3 letters question again on Family Feud. The 2 Fast Money players said elk and pig, which are like, not wrong, but come on, there's 2 really good answers here. Not gonna lie, if I were on the show, I would have said alligator, screw the points. I'm taking the slam dunk reference, and probably getting berated by Steve Harvey. I didn't sign up for this show for people to be talking about no damn alligator. Survey said. Since Steve Harvey's debut, Family Feud has consistently been one of the most watched syndicated game shows, and it doesn't look like it's going anywhere anytime soon. The show has been renewed for 3 more seasons, so it's going to be on till at least 2026, and as long as Steve Harvey's the host, it's probably not going to have much trouble ratings-wise. And that more or less wraps things up on page 26 of my script. I love doing deep dives on game shows, and this was a fun one to make as well. Family Feud premiered over 40 years ago, and it's been on TV almost every year since then. It's been through its fair share of ups and downs, but now it looks like it's here to stay. It took a while for the modern show to really get going, but it's fun to go back and watch some of the hosts that couldn't quite get the ball rolling. They all bring something different to the table. I also wanted to take the time to shout out another creator. Connor Higgins has also made 3 videos on the history of Family Feud, which I somehow didn't realize till after I started working on my own video. As soon as I found out, I reached out to let him know, hey man, I'm working on a similar project, and he was cool with it. As of recording my script, I've yet to watch his videos, but I'll let you know what I think here once I do watch them, because I plan on doing so during the editing phase. Yeah, they're really good. Go subscribe to him, please. I'll also leave links to his videos in the description. Connor and I came to an agreement that the internet is plenty big enough for multiple people to make Family Feud history videos, even though I was skeptical at first. I wasn't really sure if I wanted to continue with my own project. He's a good guy and you should go check out his channel. It's not my intention to one-up his videos, so I hope you enjoy both of our channels. And that'll do it for this video, fellas. I'll see you all in the next one. Good night, fellas. Sleep well.